And we're live, and I'm here with Maya, and we're going to speak about pleasure wands and yoni eggs and the benefits. And I mean, I've seen you post in Tantra Connection since the beginning, and I was curious and I reached out to you, but you are 12 hours ahead of me in time. So to find this time at 10 here and 10 in the morning in Bali or in Asia is, I mean, I'm so happy that you could come, and I'm looking so much forward to what we're going to speak about tonight or in the morning for you.
Yeah, thank you for having me here. It's really amazing to be able to speak about these topics on social media. And yes, I'm here in Bali, Indonesia. It's just starting the day. It's 10:30 a.m. We live in the future here in Bali from the rest of the world, which is pretty poetic. And things are lifting up here. Like the beaches are starting to open, businesses are starting to open. So there's a really positive and celebratory energy right now in the island.
And how did you end up in Bali? Because I guess you're not from Bali in the beginning. Like, can you tell us a little bit about your background and why you are where you are right now?
Yes, I was born in Mexico City, and I lived there until I was 27. And then at 27, I moved to Vancouver in Canada because I wanted to start a music career and started becoming a DJ and a singer, songwriter, and started working at music festivals and started creating a jewelry line in Canada. And what else? And I did that, like living 6 months in Canada and 6 months in Central America for like 7 years. I was going that back and forth. And it was amazing. Like you have like this endless summer, we call it, that you spend like the best time of the year in Canada and the best time of the year in Mexico. And then eventually, I just got tired of it because it's very tiring to not be stable in one place. And then Vancouver, I loved it, but the housing situation there is very expensive. It's like one of the most expensive cities in the world to live in. And then I was like, okay, I need to make a move. So Bali came up, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna move to Bali with all that I have, and all my projects, and I started a new life here. And like 2 months into Bali, Indonesia, I was creating jewelry with like Balinese artisans, and then all of a sudden came to me the idea that I wanted to start creating yoni eggs and crystal ones, but from scratch. Because
Mm.
I contemplated buying them from other female entrepreneurs, and then I would message them, and I was like, where do you get your materials? And most of them had get them from like China and Brazil. So then I researched, and China, Madagascar, and Brazil are the places where the exploitation of quartz is happening in the world.
Mhm.
And there's several like huge articles about how quartz and rose quartz are are made through exploitation, like human
Mhm.
exploitation. There's lots of mines in Brazil and in China, and people do not have good working conditions there. So I was like, all right, I don't want to support an industry that is based in exploitation, because I come from like 15 years of being vegetarian and like not consuming products that damage the world or other people.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, I'm gonna make it like an ethical mining, fair trade, Yoni egg and crystal one company. So that's what I did. I found a sculpture that uh, was had the connections with obsidian and had the connections with jade and petrified wood. So I was like, all right, like I would love to work with these materials because obsidian, like this one I call aqua obsidian, and it's from
Wow.
volcanic origin. So this means that the lava that came out of the volcano came in contact with sand, and by melting the sand, it creates the glass. But
Wow.
it's very different than just window glass. You know, if it breaks, or if you break a chunk of obsidian, like the cuttings and like the composition of an obsidian material is very different to the glass. So this one
Mhm.
has more properties than just a normal glass.
Right.
And then the other material that we're working with, this one is called Blue Obsidian. And this one is just like a very simple pleasure one. And this is great for Yoni and clitoral stimulation, but I also wanted to like work with other bigger ones. So we started creating this one out of jade or black obsidian. And then I made a drawing to create a bigger one. This one is out of petrified wood. So it's not wood anymore. And I wanted to like add more surface, like different kinds of surface, because this is great to start with, like the simple like straight lines, but eventually you just get bored of it, you know? It's like, so I added like extra textures into it. So I started the company doing the drawings and presenting the drawings to my main sculptor. And he was like, yeah, we can do that. We can basically carve anything, like a Buddha statue or anything that you think my workers can do it. And these pieces are made in Java. They're made handmade. Each piece is handmade, and no chemicals are used in the process. Just water for using the motor tool. It's like a big Dremel wheel, and then they just carve it bead by bead, just like spinning it through the wheel. It's like an ancient process.
So this means that even if you're in Europe or in the States, people can order it from you, or
Yeah.
how does that work? Yeah.
Shipping all over the world. It takes about 10 to 2 weeks. I mean, 10 days to 14 days.
So what is it that, because I guess that you had some experience with Yoni eggs and with the pleasure bonds before deciding to do a business of it. Like what was your experience, or when did you discover it, and how did it go, like to all the way to saying, okay, I'm going to do a business of this? Or was it more an artistic, like was it more artistic, or was it also because you actually had experience and knew everything that it can do for us?
I had zero experience on the practice, but I just had like the knowledge that they were really good tools for supporting your female sexual health, and you're like balancing the hormones and like emotional stability. So I was like, yeah, I really want to work with that, because at the time here in Bali, I didn't have a partner, and I was like, okay, so what's like the next logical step to take care of my own body? I was like, all right, I'm gonna create some pleasure ones. That's what's gonna happen.
So since then, what's your experience with it? What has it done for you using them, and what have you discovered?
It's been such an amazing process of like self-discovery. It's like I would just literally like dedicate a time of the day for self-pleasuring. I mean, not every day, just when I feel like it, but I took it like a personal study, like experimenting before creating the branding and like the texts. And I even created a book. More recently finished creating it's like a booklet, like a 30-page booklet called Yoni, the Transmutation Portal Between Heaven and Earth. So one of the biggest downloads that I discovered is that self-pleasure is meditation. And it's also like a connection to the present moment, and to like de-armoring and healing different places of your mind and your psyche and your body. And because like the essence of the word de-armoring is that you have like a shell or protection against your energy around your body, around your mind, around your like emotions. So there's different kinds of armoring that happens through our life, through our whole life. We're putting on armors and like taking down armor based in trauma, based in emotions of abandonment or emotions of being damaged by another person. So we create a lot of armors in our physical body. And there's different ways of the armoring. There's ways of that involve a massage therapist. There's ways that involve psychology. There's ways that involve MDMA assisted psychotherapy. So there's many ways of the armoring. But then the other more practical way that I've been working with is de-armoring with the pleasure ones.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference between using a pleasure wand or having a partner helping you de-armor is that when you're on your own, you're in 100% control of the situation, and you're 100% control of how your emotions are going to come out, or it's like how you're going to react to present certain parts of your cervix, or like certain parts that if you are with a partner, you would probably have a different reaction.
Mm-hmm. And would you say that anybody can just start and, kind of like maybe yoni mapping, or like, what would you say if you would give a couple of advices of how to start using the pleasure wands or the yoni egg? What would you say, so that, like, because we have a lot of people that just are starting to discover the world of conscious sexuality and maybe haven't even heard about the armoring. So thank you for explaining the term. So can you give us some, like, step 1, 2, 3, if you want to start? Should we start with a yoni egg or with a pleasure wand, or it doesn't matter, like how to go about it?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter if you start with a wand or with a yoni egg. You can start with either of each. It's good. It's a good intro. So let's say you start with a yoni egg. So you create a safe space. Let's say it's almost like you're creating a meditation pad.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you place all the things that you like, probably light up an incense, use some essential oils to like position yourself on a more relaxed space, make some tea, put some nice music, and then you start your yoni egg practice. And it's very simple. It's like one of the simplest things of the world. It's just like, it's easier than inserting a tampon. So it's just a very, very easy and gentle, because it's like a very organic shape.
Mm-hmm.
Here. And there's many sizes, but the best size to start with is this one, like the big one, because it's easier to feel it and map it out, as you said.
Mm-hmm. And
then the smaller ones are for people that are more experienced, that have more cognition of what's going on in their cervix. Because like the muscles, you just keep practicing like some Kegel exercises, and then through time you develop more strength. So when you have more strength in your pelvic floor muscles, then you change from like a bigger one to a smaller one. So let's say you become more sensitized of what your muscles are doing.
Yeah.
So some women that have a lot of practice with these ones change to the smaller one, and then to even a smaller one. But I like this one. It's just like a very easy starter point. And then for the pleasure ones, I would start with like the simple ones that are just small and like more elegant. And then once you have some times exploring with these ones, then I would change it to a bigger one. But not necessarily. You can just jump and directly get a bigger one and start working with the bigger one.
So I have a question. What would you say, because you were speaking about, sensitizing, and we are often told that with, electronical dildos, for example, we can get desensitized. So what would you say if somebody has been using an electrical dildo for a long time and then they're like, oh, I don't feel anything, or like, is that a completely different thing to not mix with this? Or what could you say if somebody feels like, oh, I don't feel anything, like how to use it, how to come back to kind of more natural way, more like, what would you say? What would your advice be for that?
Well, the thing is that people can easily get a dependency on electric vibrators, and that desensitizes the nerve endings, because they just get a lot of stimulation. It's just like this overwhelming vibration that it's not natural. Like in in a natural way, you can't do that, or other person can do that for you. So number one is just not a natural thing to do. And then number two, your neurons get very stimulated. It's just something like, what would be the equivalent? Yeah, I don't know what to compare it with, but it's a shock to your to. So when you transition to a stone one, or to an obsidian one, or to a crystal one, you're regulating your nervous system to go slower. It's like a slower pace. It takes you longer to get there, or not, but it's a more natural flow of getting to certain places.
It's so interesting because, working with neurology or the nervous system, when we speak a lot about fight and flight and how everything is going so fast today in today's world, and how they're like, we are bombarded all the time with input, and that we are often stuck in the sympathetic nervous system and the kind of fight and flight. So this is also probably a way to regulate and have the parasympathetic, and more about the relaxation, and more about the feeling, and more have to actually get out of that, like needing so much stimulation in order to feel something, which I think is kind of like that. If there's a pandemic, that's probably the thing that, so much there with porn or electrical vibrators, and the pace of today's society, and so I feel like this is kind of, like you say, coming back to something that is regulating us to have more of a balance in our nervous system, in our life, even in how we choose the things that we want to have for pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. It will help you so much more to regulate your nervous central system with a slower pace than getting something like in 5 minutes. It's just like getting into an ecstasy in 5 minutes, rather than building up for like a 30 minutes or like a 20 minutes. It allows your neurons to connect even more. Because when you have something made so fastly, it's almost, you get like this explosion in your brain in 5 minutes, and you're like, boom, and that's it. So when you're escalating to get into a pleasure point in a more slower pace, is like you're lighting up like your whole brain. It's like all your brain is starting to like light up and connect, and your heart is connecting, and there's also some neurons in your digestive system. It has been found in recent years that there's a lot of serotonin that gets segregated in the digestive tract. So right now there's a huge study between the brain and the gut microbiome, and it relates how depression or chronic illnesses are directly connected to your microbiome. So I would even add up into your self-care practices, and to also take care of your microbiome. Like if you want to access more pleasure, you also have to take care of what you're eating.
Yeah.
And again, we go back, don't go to the fast foods, don't go to the places that they use a lot of oil, don't go to the places that you get instantaneous gratification with fat. And like my recommendation would be to start cooking more at home, or go to places that make vegetarian foods. Start creating your own kimchi, your own sauerkraut, your own like probiotics. So that way, when you're supporting your gut microbiome, you're essentially also supporting your brain, and by doing that, you're also supporting your serotonin and dopamine segregation.
Well, it's like, everything is connected, and you're speaking to things that, sometimes we don't think they're connected, but basically it is all connected. And when you can start to feel that in your own body, that's when you believe it, because it's easy to hear. But like when we start to do practices where we can feel those connections again and come back to connection instead of disconnection. That's part of what Tantra connection is about. Reconnect with yourself, reconnect with your partner. So my question is as well, like we're now, it sounds like this is very much for self pleasure and self practice. Would you say something about how you can use it with a partner, those tools, and how could that look? How could that be done?
Yeah, absolutely. Something that you can definitely integrate in your partnership or in your, with whoever you're sharing a partnership or sex with. You can definitely integrate it, and you can just like introduce it as like, oh, so I brought something new to play with today, and like that adds up, like something new, something like a spark, especially for people who have been for like a long time together for like months and months, and probably like their sex practice became just monotonous. It's almost like making burgers now. They like the same thing over and over. So if you integrate a new element, maybe some essential oils, maybe some a wand, a yoni egg, so you start like weaving in new elements. For example, I love essential oils. And I started also creating my own line parallelly. I was like, okay, I'm gonna make the yoni eggs and the wands, and I also want to get into the oiled industry. So I started creating my essential oil line, and I started with vanilla oil.
I love that.
Yeah, it's like one of the most central smells in the world, vanilla. And then I mixed that with one oil from Peru that is called Peru balsam, and it's amazing. It's just like this sweet central smell from the jungle. And then more recently, I found some food grade oils. So I started working with with cinnamon, peppermint, and cacao. And the great thing about food grade oils is that you can eat them. So I was like, how would I integrate essential oils into my love making sessions with other people? And I was like, wow, you can actually like put this into the body of someone else, and then you have food grade edible oil that you can play with another person.
Wow. So what about like lubrication when you use the especially the wands? What would you say using something natural like coconut oil, or do you have something magical for that as well, or what would you suggest?
Coconut oil is good, but I don't like the smell too much. Like I'm hypersensitive with smells, and like I like, it's okay, but it's not like the best thing for me. So I like jojoba oil. Jojoba oil is softer. It doesn't have a smell. It's just it has a nicer texture. And then other thing that I've been using is cacao butter with shea butter.
Yeah. Wow, that smells so good too.
Yeah, and it just has like a really amazing texture, and yeah, it goes really well with the skin absorption. And I found that coconut oil, it just makes a mess in your clothes and your blankets. It's something that you will have to wash it out.
Yeah, I feel like it's a bit maybe overused in the Tantra world, especially where everything has to be natural. And of course, I mean, it's cooler. Like it's better than some kind of like industrial, these kind of gel things that I don't even know, the smells thing and kind of, yeah. So, but yeah, I can see what you're saying, why that's even. So is there anything else that you feel like it's good to know about what you maybe what you already spoke about, like any more tips, anything else that is worth sharing?
Yeah, so I would love to talk about more of the benefits, because it's just like this long list. It's like the more that I research the benefits of the yoni eggs and the crystal ones, it's just like infinite. It's like right now it's just like a very new branch of study in sexuality. But these things have been out there for thousands of years. It's like some people are speaking that yoni eggs we're out there in the concubine world of Chinese and Korean emperors like 3,000 years ago. The Chinese and the Koreans were already using Yoni eggs and pleasure ones. It's like jade was the favorite thing for them, especially for the Chinese and the Mayans. So there's also like been found lots of sex toys in Japan from like 1,000 or 2,000 years ago, like literally like toys just like this from Japan. And yeah, there was like just this big culture in high society in Japan, Korea, and ancient societies. There's also been found in Switzerland. They found a dildo carved out of an antler bone in Switzerland from like 6,000 years ago. And then another one, the most ancient piece found was found in Germany, and that one is 22,000 years old. It's like 22,000 years old. Cave people were already creating their own pleasure ones.
Yeah.
So that not only speaks about advancement, because like they had like tools and they had a way to carve the tools, and I mean there's metal tools all the way back to like 100,000 years from now, and then there's also stone tools made out of obsidian that data like 200 or 300,000 years old. I mean, they were not wands; they were like axes and knives and things to cut, for just cutting tools made out of obsidian. It's like this kind of material. So obsidian has been part of humanity for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years, even before metal and woodwork. I mean, I think it came at the same time, the use of obsidian and wood, because obsidian is so sharp that you need like a wood connected to it to use it as a knife.
Right.
It's like with one of the most precision cutting tools in the world, obsidian as well. Like it's used in surgeries for like high precision. It's higher precision than a metal knife. That's what I read obsidian. So with that quality in mind, some of the energetic qualities of obsidian is that it's energy protecting, bad energy cutting, protection shield against psychic attacks or the mind of other people. It's used by shamans all over the world as protection. They would just wear like a pendant, a necklace, a big chunk of obsidian in their room, absorbing or protecting them from the energy of others. So it absorbs the extra accumulated energy of your body, and that's just another great quality of working with stone wands and stone eggs, or obsidian eggs, because obsidian is not a stone, it's just classified as a glass. So let's say working with stone and glass is so much more beneficial for your body than working with quartz. And why do I say this? It's not that quartz doesn't have high vibration, which it has. Is the fact is that quartz right now has been so exploited by the new age community that is no longer sustainable.
Right.
Is that we've been exploiting quartz ever since the 60s or the 50s. Like there was a lot of quartz collecting going on for a long time.
So are you not using it at all because of the fair trade, or or do you use it like from a source that is sustainable, or how do you do?
Yeah, right now we're not working with quartz at all, because to create a like a statement, like a clear statement, and just telling people to stop purchasing quartz ones, because most of the quartz ones and quartz eggs come from China, Madagascar, and Brazil, which are exploitation mining places.
Yeah.
And there's an article that I just found. It's like a 3-page article, like super professional, that explains how children are used in to get the quartz from the quartz mines, because they're smaller, so they can go into the tunnels and like get the quartz out of the mines. So I find that as a person, as a member of the conscious community, and being supportive of vegetarianism and supportive of organic agriculture, and also being very aware of the clothes, where do we buy it from, the things that we wear, our objects, and of course also our sex tools should be fair trade. If we're trying to change the world, we can also start changing it by our purchases,
right?
And supporting businesses of small productions, businesses from your own town, businesses that work with indigenous people, such as my business, which is called Wild Souls United, and we work with Balinese carvers and Balinese women that weaves the bags, the protection bags of their tools. For example, this was made by a Balinese woman.
Yeah, beautiful.
And then, so when you purchase a Yoni egg or a crystal wand from us, you're also supporting the man who created the wand itself, the women who create a bag, the carriers, and who else? Oh, the oil maker. There's also some oils at my Etsy page.
So maybe tell us a little bit about hygiene, especially in these times with masks and like things, gloves and things. Like, how do you keep the eggs and the wands? How do you keep them hygienic? Like, how do you clean them? What do you use for cleaning? And maybe when you receive it, you have to cook it. Like, what are the ways that you can keep it hygienic for you?
Yeah, I don't recommend boiling so much, especially with the obsidian eggs, because like you don't really need to boil it, because like it's non-porous. By being non-porous, that means that nothing goes in.
Right.
It's like one of the most antiseptic materials that you can work with. Because if you work with quartz tends to have pores in it, or like little cracks. It's like it's very, very rare to find a perfect wand made out of quartz. Whether you can find a perfect wand made out of jade with no cracks, no pores. And so the way I use them, I use some like Dr. Brenner soap, and like with warm water, and voila, ready. And if you have a Yoni egg that has a hole in it, you can use a brush.
Yeah, I've heard too that you can put, if you have essential oil like peppermint or something, you could also put it in a glass with a couple of drops of oil, because that's antiseptic too. And probably the oils that you have, maybe not the food grade one, but the peppermint and the stronger ones are probably also a possibility for that. So you wouldn't say that you wouldn't say that that's a big problem, like soap and water, like that's enough.
I wouldn't use peppermint at all, because peppermint, you could have some residues and then it would just be really spicy for you.
Right. I mean, this is funny. I lived in Italy, and they have a soap for intimate wash. It's called Chill, and it's made with eucalyptus and mint. And like, you can imagine how cooling it is, but a little bit too much.
Too spicy for me.
Too spicy, yeah. So why? Yeah. Sorry.
Antiseptic that came to my mind is you could use colloidal silver. It's like put some drops of colloidal silver and then wash it, or leave it with the colloidal silver in water for like 5 minutes, and supposedly colloidal silver kills viruses, bacteria, fungi, anything that could be there.
And if you use them with a strap in the little hole, what would you use? Like floss, or what would you do?
Around the world are using the same floss for the teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And just make sure that it's non-menthol floss. Again, for the same reason.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, non-menthol floss, and you're good to go.
So do you also have, like, in that booklet that you were speaking about, are there some instructions as well, or do you have like even like YouTube videos, or like, well, how, like, yeah, or how do they, if we order an egg for you or from you, or does it come like in a little, like the
Yeah,
how?
you get an egg on, you get the book for free delivered to your email. And in the booklet, describe the properties, like the physical properties, emotional properties, hormonal properties, energy protection properties of mostly obsidian, because it's the stone that I work mostly with.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have some pointers on jade and some pointers on petrified wood,
Mm-hmm.
which are the 3 main materials that I work with. And then if you just want to buy the book, the ebook by itself, you can also get it on my Etsy store for $15. It's pretty affordable information that took me like 2 years to gather from studies, research that I made, and also from personal experience.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So is there anything else that we should know about you, or about the pleasure wands or the jade eggs? Any last words that you want to share?
It's just like a really nice addition to your altar as well. Because when you start working with eggs or with wands, you're telling yourself that you care about yourself.
Right.
So when you create an altar for your pieces, it's like you're integrating that as part of your grounding methods, or your like self-care rituals. Is like you have your altar, you have your pieces, you put some quartz in it, you put some flowers, some incense, and then you just create like this beautiful mandala or creation with the tools that you're using. So that way, every time that you see your altar, you're aware that you have access to these tools. Like,
yes.
rather than having them hiding in your.
That's what I was gonna say. What a different approach to like hide them somewhere than to put them on, like showing the universe of manifestation of pleasure, right? That's such a different approach.
Huge difference. Have them hiding on a box and on your wardrobe or in your tea table, than having them on your altar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know you were sharing in the group. Maybe you'll share again some of the photos of the things that you of your altar. Basically, that would be great. And I'm also I mean, your link for your Facebook is already in the description. We can also add the website where people can order. And I'm super excited. I'm even thinking that we should kind of have like in Tantra Connection, we should buy some and try them, and like, tell people about our experience. That would be fun.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And as we were speaking, I'm starting to work with another Balinese designer, and we're gonna make a glass line. Stone, and my next line is gonna be glass pieces, and they're gonna be more intricate, and they're gonna have just much more intricacy to it, because you can just make anything out of glass. And so that's going to be the next thing that I'm going to share with you is the glass pieces. They're probably going to be ready in 1 week.
Okay, well, let's continue the conversation and show the world everything that's possible.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and your show and this Tantra Connection. Super happy to
And thank you
space
for finding a time that worked for both of us, 12 hours apart.
yeah. And how is it for you now in Miami?
I mean, I'm kind of in my bubble a little bit, but of course, I mean, there have been demonstrations and a lot of things with the Black Lives Matters, which is a wake up call for the world. But sometimes, it happens a bit in extreme ways and unexpected ways. And then the lockdown, like, I mean, yeah, the world 2020 has been very different from the world 2019 or before. But I see it very much as something that has to happen, and a lot of things, like you're speaking about awareness, you're speaking about like a conscious way of living, and I feel like many of the things that are coming up is because we can't continue to like distract ourselves from everything that's really going on. So I feel optimistic about the things that are going on. I think it's needed that things come up to the surface, that we see things, that we're able to feel into what's integrity for each one of us. So I'm quite hopeful for the world stage right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the shifts and challenges, and it's almost like this global metamorphosis that we're experiencing.
Right.
Like what process of the pupa stage,
Mm-hmm.
and then transition into a butterfly, but we're not butterfly yet. We're still like transitioning and like liquefying our body and transforming. So now that you speak about like what's happening right now in the world, it came to me of like, yes, it's like one of the other important things to be focusing in your personal sexual practice or self-pleasure practice is to become more embodied. It's like to become more in touch with your heart and your emotions and your body and your root chakra, because we need it.
Yeah.
It's like it's so needed right now to become more embodied. Take a time away from your phone, away from your computer, and just focus in feeling, and just focus in your own body, in your own being, your own energy, and heal your human body and your human mind.
Yeah, I love that you say that, and so much what I do in my work with people is that I feel like when we are in our body completely, when we dare to be there, and when we understand our emotions and dare to feel them, it's like the discernment and the discrimination that we can have when we walk out in the world is completely different, because we're not trying to understand from our mind if things are in alignment or not, but actually our body, it's a sensor. Our emotions is a sensor. So when we embody this vehicle and everything that it is, it's so much easier to know when something is in alignment or out of alignment, or corruption or not in corruption. So I feel like it's such an important thing right now as well, and not only for our own pleasure, but really for being able to discern what's out there and how to walk and how to be sovereign in everything that's going on, which has to do with self-leadership, which I think has a lot to do with how much we can integrate and how much we can allow in our lives.
Yeah, and also from a position of de-armoring our own like psyche and our own emotions and our own like traumatized bodies. Like right now we're all being traumatized by media. Like even if we're not there in person to be traumatized by the police, we're still traumatized by media. Mm-hmm. By images, the information, the tone of the voice who are speaking in those videos. So like one other of my piece of advice is to be very selective into the videos that you click play to. Absolutely. Or the audio.
That's why I'm speaking about the bubble, not because I don't want to know, because I already feel some of the frequencies that are there. And it is about choosing what frequencies you want to bathe in, not because you don't care, but it's actually everything is frequency. So I wouldn't go into minefield if I don't have to, whether it's media minefield or a true minefield in a war.
Yeah, just be very, very mindful and discerning what you're gonna like put your life force into, because it could traumatize you in like 5 minutes or 10 minutes of a video. That you're creating an imprint to your brain that it's gonna probably take you hours to overcome. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, once again, going to your self-care practice is one of the most healing and nurturing things that you can do for yourself right now.
Yeah, I agree.
The world, we're just like constantly bombarded by information, brain, like eyes. We need to also like stimulate other parts of our bodies in a positive and nurturing way to like ground. Because if not, we're just like here, and it's painful. It can be just depleting of your energy if you're just living here.
Yeah, and I mean, if we have 5 or 6 senses, why would we only use the visual? It's so important to come back to all the senses, and the skin, which is like the biggest of the organs, basically. So yeah, I so agree with you, and thank you for bringing that up, in this conversation too, to widen it and then to put it in a bigger perspective. That's like, I'm all about that. So thank you for taking that initiative.
Yeah, well, thank you for co-creating this conversation with me. I hope the viewers get some powerful takeaways from this talk, and
yeah, thank you. And let's continue conversation again. Let's see where it leads.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a beautiful night over there, and thank you for watching to all of our viewers.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, and goodbye for now.